Hello, fellow toolboxers. Welcome to episode number 277. We're here to improve your law practice in your life. We have a special episode where we're interviewing Billy Hushner Jr., a great immigration attorney that did some tremendous work when an ICE officer was doing some horrible stuff. And you can learn this on the DOJ website. They busted this person for real bad abuse. And so, warning, this is a disclaimer that there's going to be some harsh information coming. But this government officer was doing some terrible stuff to an immigrant and many immigrants, and he helped expose this. So it's very important. I had to interview him about what happened. So check it out. Before we start, I want to remind everybody, wherever you're watching this, please like and subscribe, leave a review. It helps the podcast get the word out. The more viewers we have, the more attention, more stuff we can do, more product and help we can give education to the community. And a causation of this and the attention we get, the sponsors we get, is we have support to host a special CLE. The CLE is going to be on March. Oops, I just closed the window that has it. It's Persian New Year, Iranian New Year, the first day of spring. It's March 16th. Let me double check the date. And I'll give you some bad information. March 21st at 10 a.m. Pacific time, Eastern time at 3 hours. So that I always do the math wrong. So I'll let you figure that out. At 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we're going to talk about challenges for Iranian immigration, issues with the embassy, timelines, all this kind of stuff. And if you haven't handled Iranian cases, you got to know so you don't lead your clients down the wrong road. And if you are handling Iranian cases, we'll give you some up-to-date information, other issues we're dealing with. And it's something I always have multiple Iranian cases happening at any time. So it's something I'm dealing with constantly. It's going to help you as well. If you want to join the live show, it's going to be a Zoom, but it's within a system we have called circle.so, which is a private community page we created like Facebook, but it's private. All you got to do is email me and let me know you want to do a CLE or just want to join the circle.so group. I just need to know you're a lawyer and stuff, and I can add you to there. We're adding more and more content there. There's a page where you can ask questions, discussion group, just like Facebook, but without the Facebook ads and without Facebook jumbling things around where you can't find information you saw there. A lot of good stuff. So definitely check that out. And thank you to our sponsor who brought us this opportunity. Cerenade's eIMMIGRATION. This podcast is sponsored by them as well as the CLE that's happening. They've been in the immigration space for 30 years, a modern practice management software for immigration attorneys, other legal professionals to manage their cases, clients, forms, billing, and much more. They're trusted by tens of thousands of happy attorneys in the law firms. In 2022, they won the highest rating for immigration software on both Capterra and G2 for best value and best ease of use, amongst other awards. They have everything you want in modern practice software. It's cloud-based, has a sleek, intuitive UI, and bank-grade security. All of this with a knowledgeable and responsive technical support team who knows immigration. And I speak with the CEO and the owners of the company, and they're really receptive. They're really interested in helping the immigration lawyer community. It's really a passion that goes with what they do. What really separates them from the pack is a comprehensive across over 100 features. They include features you might not use today, but can save time, like e-filing systems, which is the rage. Integration is the only platform that offers e-filing for all USCIS forms. Stop paying for multiple software and use eIMMIGRATION to handle all your practice needs. For a demo, visit cerenade.com/eIMMIGRATION, Cerenade with a C, or reach out sales@cerenade.com for more information. And a special bonus to giving for Toolbox listeners, and you got to hear this, over $1,000 in discounts that are coming from waiving the setup fee, waiving the conversion fee from their standard import, getting the first month free. And that could be a lot of money depending on how many users you're having. All you got to do is mention the code Immigration Lawyers Toolbox offer 2023 when you're signing up. You can take advantage of this special offer. I think you're going to enjoy it. Having said that, the information here is all for general education purposes, not intended for individual legal guidance. And if you want to know about the champions, if you want to know about the Circle.so group, let me know. We do have a program called Champions of Freedom for people interested in learning immigration law. We have a lot of new immigration lawyers, people who want to be immigration lawyers, listen to this podcast. It's a course we have on marriage-based immigration, how to get your green card based on marriage and kind of family stuff, consular processing, inadmissibility, a lot of stuff that you may not know or may not be familiar with, or you know a little bit, but you want to go in detail. It's the best course out there, frankly, and you're going to really like it. I'm sure you will, and you'll leave a good review so everyone else knows. Trust me, all the students love that joint. So it's a really good program, and I'd love to have you part of there. Just email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com if you want more information about that. Without further ado, let's get the show started. Hi, Billy. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Billy Hushner Jr. Over there in Ohio. This is a special episode because Billy got a case approved. We're going to go into it, where a person was treated really badly, and that's an understatement, by ICE. And a lot of lawyers took the case and said he can't do anything with it. He was able to make a big difference. It's it's right now
being prosecuted by the state, not state department, the Justice Department. So we're going to that in a second. But Billy, can you tell us about your background, how you got into immigration law, and what kind of practice you have right now?
Absolutely. So I got into immigration law as a second career. Coming out of college, my first kind of big move was I started working as a union organizer. I was working with the American Federation of Teachers in New Mexico. Ended up doing political work for them in Colorado, and then worked as a union rep slash political director slash organizer in the Denver area. So I did that work for about 10 years. While I was doing that work and getting involved in the community, I started to serve on some community boards, and I was invited by one of my colleagues to serve on the board of an organization called Rights for All People, or Derechos para Todos. And we eventually saw that there was space to open up, and we opened up a new organization called Colorado People's Alliance, which is now a statewide organization organizing for immigrants' rights in Colorado. And I got really passionate about that. I've always been friends with folks who are a little on the outside, outcasts. I'm half Mexican, but didn't really know my dad. So I always had this identity that was a little different. So in college, most of my friends were Latinos and immigrants, and I just was really connected to it. And whenever I started to learn more and more about the injustices, about the intersections of criminal justice and immigrant justice, I knew I had to do something about it. So I wanted to get some more tools in my toolbox, and really figure out the situation and see how I could help.
Wonderful. And then, so you went the law school route?
Yeah, so at that point, I decided to go to law school. I stayed in Denver for that, and then eventually moved out to Ohio for family reasons.
I see. How old were you when you went to law school?
I was 34 when I started law school.
Okay, that's a big commitment at 34 to go to law school, but obviously you really have passion for it. So you went to Ohio, and then what kind of practice do you have now?
So I'm working at the Costas Network Law Center. I'm supervising senior attorney here, supervising the Cleveland office. We do nearly full service immigration work. I focus mostly on removal defense, criminal representation, family petitions, humanitarian asylum. But we also do, domestic employment law, things like that too.
Very interesting. And a side note, you see, like it seems like Ohio's really growing. I keep seeing signs of people opening up factories there. Do you notice that Ohio is like growing as a state, or is more businesses going, or is it just I randomly have seen this kind of stuff?
I definitely hear news about it. Like there's a new big Intel plant going into the Columbus area. Youngstown's kind of famous for falling apart after the auto industry moved out, but it looks like the new auto industry that's heavily electric based is starting to move in there. So they have like the Lordstown Truck Company, and they have battery companies, and you can see that there's a lot more demand for this factory work coming back to Ohio.
Definitely. So fill us in. What? Just start from the beginning of this case that you got, and go to all details. I'll leave it to you to flesh it out. But it's just it's amazingly sad. But there's there's a potential happy ending of what you did accomplish.
Yeah, so what this all happened through a transition at our firm. We had somebody who was a junior attorney. She had worked here at immigration law for a little bit, and decided to kind of move on and find a new area to practice. Um, and so I was picking up her case, reviewing through the notes, and I saw this note. And first of all, I want to give props to our paralegal at the time. Um, Through the rapport that she was able to develop with our client felt comfortable enough to raise this issue.
Hmm.
And what she raised is that her deportation officer had groomed her, flirted with her, and had used his power to coerce her into multiple sex acts and other things over texts, personal meetings, forcing her to come to his home.
Wow.
So it was quite atrocious. And as immigration attorneys, sometimes we kind of get in our zone and say, this is what we do, or this is what we don't do. Or back in the day of like union reps would be like, this is what reps do, and I don't do this. And so that's always kind of gotten on my nerves.
Yeah.
Um, I kind of see us as fixers more than just immigration attorneys. So anytime we want to pick up any type of work, we're capable of doing a lot of cool things as attorneys. But the first thing we think of is, is there a U visa here? Is there whatever?
Yeah.
And so, I looked at it and it's just like, my client's not in a good place. She's young, she's vulnerable, she's in ICE supervision right now. And if anything weird happens with this, like, I don't want to get the call that something really bad happened to her.
Mhm.
And so I assessed it as much as I could, talked with her through it, built some rapport. I have some previous experience working with law enforcement for immigration purposes in Colorado, working with exploited farm workers. And so in Colorado, we had a relationship with the FBI. Unfortunately, I didn't have that here, but I had an idea of some of the mechanisms. So I was just trying to figure out, now that I know about this, what I do with it. And I got my client, after a couple conversations, to courageously agree that I could report it, and that we would start working on a process to make her feel safe. And part of the idea is we also knew that there had to be other women. There's no way it was just her. So I started kind of thinking about who I wanted to talk to, and I was trying to assess for information. So I called the victim services in the county where she lives, and I didn't get a call back. I didn't get an answer.
Huh.
Um, I'm still kind of floored by that.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to figure out where to go. And with it being an ICE officer, I was like, I'm going to call the duty attorney at the USA office. So the U.S. attorneys called them, got on the line with the duty attorney right away, and boom, they just took it and they ran. They called me back the same day, emailed me, and we had some corroborating texts and screen captures that we had.
Yes.
So we shared that information, and it was very clear that they were taking this very seriously. In the meantime, I saw this was ramping up, and I knew my client was very credible from my conversations with her. I worked to find a neutral advocate who could work with her, because my main work is not, working as an advocate in that role.
Mhm.
And my client lives down in Cincinnati, which is about 6 hours from Cleveland, for those who don't know. Um, our clients from Cincinnati hire us up here quite often because the court is in Cleveland, and we're the ones most familiar with the court. We spend a lot of time here, and they're going to be here anyway, and they don't want to pay for the cost of a Cincinnati attorney to drive up here.
Yeah.
So I called the Ohio Crime Victim Justice Center, it's called. They're a nonprofit, absolutely no cost to it, and immediately they had a kind of a social worker type individual and a licensed attorney working on her case together with us. And so, they're able to do anything from sit down and do preparation for interviews with law enforcement, help file motions and petitions for the client with law enforcement, with the court, in order to make sure that a victim's rights are upheld and that they can have an advocate for them on their side. Because quite often the prosecutors, the court, and others are a little single-minded in trying to get a conviction more than actually see what the victims need to have justice for them.
Yeah.
So they've been invaluable in this process, and I've really appreciated what they had. So they helped my client interview with the FBI, who was on the case after about 11 days. Got a call from a special agent who told me quickly that my client's accusations were very credible. They were found to be credible. And soon afterward, they corroborated the evidence internally with cooperation from the Inspector General's office for DHS. Got in touch with them as well. And it kind of quickly got to this point. And then after about 4 months, I was told that the deportation officer was placed on leave. Kind of there, it went on radio silence. We're in the middle of the COVID pandemic.
Mhm.
There were no grand juries at the time. The federal courthouses were absolutely closed. And so we just kind of waited, just hoping the right thing would happen.
And no rest, just leave.
And so, yeah, it was no arrest at that point, just leave at that point, as far as I understand. And I'm not someone who practices in the federal criminal context, and so what they're looking for to get that arrest, but they were seeking a grand jury is what they were doing, and they were also testing theories. And so I was fortunate enough to be part of some conversations with the AUSAs about theories of human trafficking based on the fact pattern that happened here, and it turned out after a substantial delay of over 2 years, this deportation officer was indicted on 7 charges, and he's facing up to life in prison at this point.
I wanted to jump in for a quick second and talk about one of our wonderful new sponsors, ImmigrationEvaluationDirectory.com. Did you know research reports psychological evaluations can increase an asylum applicant's chance of approval by 78%? Psychological evaluations are hugely beneficial in hardship, cancellation, asylum, and other types of immigration cases, whether with USCIS or the Immigration Court. Connecting with qualified clinicians has never been easier thanks to the ImmigrationEvaluationDirectory.com. Free to use, you can filter the directory by location, language, case type, and more, then review profiles and reach out. The Immigration Evaluation Directory is your one-stop resource to find the best therapist to help. Explore more today at ImmigrationEvaluationDirectory.com and get the help that you need.
Unfortunately, he has been released on bond since. But at this point, hopefully we have reassurances that we can hold him accountable, and I'm looking forward to actually going to the proceedings myself, so I can see justice done.
Wonderful. So with regards to the immigration angle of it, would this end up being a U visa or a T visa, and has it been certified, or how's that going? Or is that something you can't talk about?
No, I can talk a little bit about it. So I talked to my client, and she's all right with me sharing some of this. So immigration angle is, so my client is DACA eligible.
Good.
She was about 6 or 7 when she entered the United States. Arrested by ICE in 2018. She never applied for DACA, mostly resource reasons, access reasons. But she had an IH that was going to be scheduled already at the time. This was all going down. And after everything seems credible, that's where I'm like, okay, time to shift gears a little bit from the, personal safety of my client angle. Now I'm going to see, what type of benefit can come from this. So, I go looking at what's there. U visa seems pretty clear eligibility wise, at least. T visa, not as clear, but I think it's there. And through conversations, I feel fairly confident I think we can get there, because this DO was using her passport as the leverage and wouldn't give her access to her passport.
Oh wow, a typical T visa kind of scenario where they withhold a passport. Yeah.
Right. And so, holding something of value for the commercial trafficking aspect, I feel fairly confident with what we have there. Just have to navigate a few things on some of the case law, but I think we look good there. But an interesting that happened is the Inspector General's office reached out to me and offered to grant her deferred action status.
Well, that's good.
So currently my client has deferred action status. It's being renewed on a year-by-year basis at this point, and she does have work authorization incidental to that. An interesting aspect of this, though, is even after she got deferred action, the local OPLA office would refuse to dismiss my client's case, even after the initial prosecutorial discretion memos had come out. So this was spring 2020, about when it first came out. So when the first memo came out, I sent an email to OPLA here asking for supervised review, discuss the issue, and I did get all that, but I got a pretty quick denial that we're going to choose not to exercise any discretion in this case. So it felt pretty callous that an ICE officer, perpetrates this crime against my client. My client blows the whistle, protects them from future liability, protects herself, protects other women from this type of abuse. And it felt pretty callous that they would just not agree to anything. So lo and behold, Ms. Chavez comes out that April, right before the IH. And my first motion to terminate was this case. Fortunately, here in Cleveland, we were able to terminate nearly all of our removal defense cases that were to be set to be determined in 2021 before Fernandez. Nearly all of the judges here were terminating cases based on claim processing. So it was my first termination out of the court. Cleaned my hands of that, and now we're just kind of planning for the future. I recently picked up the T visa case due to financial restraints. My client was unable to hire us at the start. I had referred her to a nonprofit, but she's eventually decided that she wants to stay with the firm. So I'm going to be handling her T visa, and I'm looking forward to working on that.
Wonderful. So there's a silver lining here. It's OPLA not playing ball is shocking and not shocking. Unfortunately, sometimes people take sides in something and they lose they get so like narrow-minded, they lose the bigger picture. And you see that unfortunately a lot from what I see now when it comes to that agency. But thank you for the work you do. It's a tough thing since you kind of lose sleep overnight when you learn about this kind of stuff, and it puts a fire in you to try to help people. It's just so inappropriate on maximum level to hear this news. So I thought it's really important to get this out. And this probably happens not a lot, but it's probably happening because there's so much power. The power differential between the officer and the immigrant is so much, and the fear that this is probably happening to, if I say probably, maybe there's one person at least, but at the border right now, the situation that's going on in different offices. So it's just, something that we got to talk to clients about. And that report you talked about is so important. A lot of times when you're dealing with these kind of cases, you got to get the client comfortable enough to tell you everything. Even when I'm doing marriage cases, sometimes people aren't comfortable telling me stuff, and I got to kind of like a simple basic case where like you got to kind of like have the energy and the relationship to get the information out of people, because they're embarrassed or don't think it's important or all this kind of stuff, but you got to get it out. So great work by your firm to get that information.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and just I can't stress how important it was to have the right paralegal on the case, to have somebody who cares, they're understanding, thorough, and just really creates that sense of security. Because without her being able to do that, I wouldn't have been able to also do the same.
Yeah, it's that patience and spending time with the client and not just being another number, like in and out, just fill out this intake and then we'll deal with you later kind of thing. Just to talk with somebody. There's a therapy aspect to what we do, so you need someone to sit there and talk with them to get the information out. So on a brighter side, how does 2023 look for you? What do you have planned for the coming year?
2022. So I'm going through a family transition at this point, so looking forward to finding my new and best self. Um, Still trying to figure out what's happening with Title 42. Our firm has done a significant amount of humanitarian parole work under Title 42, mostly in the Texas ports of entry. That was quite a shift. We actually opened up an international call center working with people abroad to help us with intake, doing a significant amount of parole through that process, which has actually changed quite a bit of the work we're doing here, and was very difficult kind of managing how we got that work along with our existing clients continuing to have a high level of service. But knowing that looks like it's transitioning soon, we're working to increase our marketing, doing business marketing, and I'm continuing to build up my criminal immigration practice for what's here. So had a lot of success so far in that. Looking forward to continuing to work on that while getting more and more into more complicated immigration cases, and doing everything we can to help our clients.
Can you talk more about humanitarian parole? It's an option that exists, but I've always been pessimistic. So a lot of times I don't bring it up. And recently, one of my associates like, "Why are you so pessimistic? Give it a shot." At the border, especially with CBP, it's worth a shot. Can you talk about the kind of cases you had approved with humanitarian parole?
Okay, so typically humanitarian parole, and everything I had known and understood was that it was kind of your unicorn. You have to have the right facts,
Yeah,
almost like a cancellation case, right? You have to have something that's dire enough, and they
yeah,
still may or may not accept it. Typically go through your process with DOS, get your denial, show up at the border, and see, take your shot at it. One of our former associates here, however, ended up getting in contact with one of the supervisory CBP officers at one of the ports of entry, and had a conversation and was able to convince people who were in unsanitary, unsafe conditions in the camps under the Stay in Mexico program, convinced her to let the individuals come in for parole. And so essentially what we started doing is we would assess each case, do a thorough intake process, assess any medical issues, physical issues, unsafe, had they been victimized by crime, are they families, and prepare packets at the border, and we'd submit them through. And over this last year, we've had hundreds of families that we've
wow,
through at the borders.
Wow. Wow.
But this is a Title 42 specific piece, and they've clearly indicated to us that they are scaling back on it. We've had some ports that we were working with that have stopped doing the humanitarian parole under this process,
Yeah.
and a few that are still trickling through, with the recent Supreme Court decisions that are essentially holding it at bay at this point. I don't really know what CBP is going to do or not, but we're assuming that it's gonna scale down at this point.
I mean, that's incredible work. You got even one family is a lot, let alone the numbers that you mentioned. That's incredible. So, this pessimism I had wasn't a good thing. I'm glad I'm getting back into it and putting the word out. Like, obviously, you said they might be dialing it down, but sometimes if that's the only option, you got to give it a shot. Like, I have people in like the UNHCR program for refugee status in like other countries, or like, can we come to the border and parole in? I'm like, I don't know, that's kind of pushing it if you come from Turkey all the way here, but if they want to give it a shot, that might be a thing to do.
The problem is you have to be there though. So if you get there and then you get denied, you're in a tough situation.
Yeah. No going back there to Turkey, going back like you're stuck in Mexico. It's a very uncomfortable position to be in all of a sudden.
Yeah, but sometimes people just want to know the option and
you
they'll
got to
sign
give them all the
up.
options. Exactly. Well, good stuff, Billy. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Hope to be in touch. Stay on after recording ends, but I really appreciate the work you do. If you want to reach out to talk with you or to learn more about your firm, what are the best ways to contact you? Social media, email, or anything else?
Yeah, you can find us online at costasnetwork.com. My email address is Billy, BILLY, at costas-network.com. That's COSTAS-network.com. Love to collaborate, love to talk about things. Hopefully we can just keep moving things forward to advance the interests of our clients.
Definitely appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John.